A normal day at Knott's Berry Farm. The morning of September 16th, 2009 began like any other late summer day at Knott's Berry Farm in Buena Park, California. The air was warm, a light coastal breeze drifted across the midway, and the familiar ambient sounds of clicking anti-rollback devices, roaring coaster trains, and distant crowds echoed through the park. Originally established as a humble roadside berry stand in the 1920s, Knott's had evolved over the decades into one of the most heavily visited amusement destinations in the United States. It balanced its historic, rustic ghost town charm with an aggressive push into high-thrill ride engineering. Towering over the boardwalk section of the park was its crown jewel, a massive structure of neon coral and turquoise steel known as Xcelerator. On this particular Wednesday, the park was populated by a mix of school groups, vacationing families, and roller coaster enthusiasts, many of whom gravitated directly toward the boardwalk specifically to experience the sheer, visceral force of this attraction. For the guests waiting in line, Xcelerator was not just another roller coaster. It was a masterclass in psychological tension. The queue wound beneath a towering, 205-foot vertical top hat structure, allowing waiting riders to look straight up as multicolored trains, styled like retro 1950s flame-painted hot rods, shot skyward at impossible angles. The soundtrack of the area was a continuous loop of vintage rock and roll, occasionally punctured by the loud, mechanical hiss of a pneumatic system dumping air pressure. The atmosphere in the station was an intentional mix of nostalgia and adrenaline. Guests watched the boarding process with intense focus, noting how the ride operators systematically checked the heavy lap bar restraints. The ride had earned a reputation as one of the most intense, unyielding sensory experiences in the amusement industry, making it a mandatory rite of passage for anyone visiting the Southern California park. As the afternoon progressed, the operation of Xcelerator remained perfectly consistent. Train after train rolled out of the loading platform, paused at the launch grid, and vanished down the track in a blur of motion. To the average observer, the entire operation felt like a flawless display of modern automated machinery. The screams echoing from the riders at the top of the tower were a testament to the ride's success, a sign that the attraction was performing exactly as its engineers had intended. Nothing in the behavior of the ride, the actions of the ride operators, or the sounds of the machinery gave any indication that the structural components hidden beneath the launch track were reaching a critical, catastrophic breaking point. The thousands of guests who passed through the turnstiles that day viewed the ride as an apex of modern engineering safety, completely unaware of the physical forces straining to their absolute limits just beneath the surface. Panic inside the park. As the damaged train rolled backward down the launch track, the ride's automated safety mechanisms performed exactly as they were engineered to do in the event of a launch failure. The magnetic brake fins along the launch track, which had dropped flat to allow the launch, had automatically popped back up into their upright positions the moment the computer detected a loss of cable tension. As the train swept backward through these permanent magnetic fins, the eddy currents generated an immense, smooth, braking force, rapidly decelerating the vehicle from its backward flight and bringing it to a dead stop just outside the loading station. However, while the mechanical systems had successfully contained the vehicle, a medical crisis was unfolding inside the front car. The silence that followed the train's deceleration was instantly broken by raw panic. Russell Wheeler looked down and realized the severity of his son's injuries. Kyle's left leg was bleeding profusely from the deep gouge left by the cable. Russell began screaming desperately for help, trying frantically to release his seatbelt and push the heavy hydraulic lap bar off his son. Because the ride had suffered an emergency fault, the computer system kept the lap bars firmly locked in place as a safety default, trapping the injured boy and his father inside the blood-stained car. Nearby guests, who had been waiting in the station queue, began yelling in confusion and terror, scrambling away from the platform gates as the sheer scale of the injury became visible to those standing above. Ride operators acted quickly, hitting the emergency stop buttons on their consoles to cut all residual power to the hydraulic systems and initiating the park's mass casualty response protocol. Security personnel and park ride leads sprinted up the station stairs, ordering the panicked crowds to evacuate the queue lines to clear a path for emergency personnel. Within minutes, the atmosphere of the entire boardwalk area shifted from an energetic amusement zone to a secured forensic and medical site. Paramedics from the Buena Park Fire Department arrived on the scene with sirens blaring, navigating their equipment through the park's crowded pathways. Working alongside maintenance staff, who had to manually override the train's hydraulic systems to release the locked lap bars, medical personnel carefully extricated Kyle from the front car, stabilizing his leg with emergency tourniquets, before rushing him and his father to a nearby trauma center. 3. The investigation begins. Before the day concluded, Xcelerator was officially placed under a strict operational lockdown. The California Division of Occupational Safety and Health, commonly known as Cal/OSHA, dispatched a team of specialized amusement ride, safety inspectors, and forensic engineers to Knott's Berry Farm. The site was treated with the meticulousness of a criminal investigation. The immediate perimeter of the launch track was cordoned off with high-visibility safety tape. Manukatin desidoyi safety tape. And park maintenance crews were barred from touching or altering any mechanical components until the state engineers could document every detail of the failure scene. The initial focus of the investigative team centered on the physical evidence left behind on the track. Inspectors collected the shattered fragments of the braided steel launch cable, cataloging the locations where the wire rope had separated. They carefully photographed the deep gouges and structural gashes sliced into the fiberglass body of the purple hot rod train, analyzing the angle of the kinetic impact to determine exactly how the cable had whipped upward into the passenger compartment. The ride's main control system data logs were downloaded, providing investigators with an exact digital readout of the hydraulic pressures, valve timings, and acceleration metrics at the precise millisecond the failure occurred. Crucial to the early stages of the inquiry was the recovery of the onboard camera footage. Investigators reviewed the high-definition recording frame by frame, analyzing the visual timeline of the cable's snap relative to the train's position on the track. They conducted extensive interviews with the ride operators who were on duty that afternoon, examining whether the proper pre-launch protocols had been executed and verifying that all restraint systems had operated within normal parameters. The investigation quickly expanded beyond the immediate events of September 16th, with Cal/OSHA demanding that Knott's Berry Farm turn over years of maintenance archives, daily inspection logs, non-destructive testing reports, and all official safety correspondence between the park and the manufacturer, Intamin. 2. What investigators eventually discovered. When Cal/OSHA engineers completed their technical analysis of the maintenance logs, their findings revealed a shocking narrative of systemic operational neglect and critical communication failures. The state's official accident report blasted both Knott's Berry Farm and the ride's manufacturer, Intamin, revealing that the catastrophic cable snap was completely preventable. The primary, most damning discovery centered on the actual service life of the launch cable involved in the accident. Investigators revealed that at the moment it detonated beneath Kyle Wheeler's car, the cable had been in continuous use for an astonishing 201 days. This was nearly a month longer than the maximum 6-month operational limit established by basic engineering safety margins. The investigation uncovered a deep, troubling layer of corporate miscommunication regarding the safety protocols mandated for the ride. Intamin had previously issued a critical safety alert notification to operators of its hydraulic launch coasters, recommending that the high-tensile launch cables undergo detailed visual inspections once every single month to detect early signs of fraying and wire degradation. However, investigators discovered that Knott's Berry Farm management was completely unaware of this monthly inspection recommendation. The park had never received the updated safety briefings from the manufacturer, leading maintenance crews to operate under the flawed assumption that checking the cables once every 6 months was entirely sufficient. Even worse, the report revealed that the park had failed to execute even their own basic 6-month inspection protocol. Instead of performing the required non-destructive magnetic testing to look for internal fatigue, breaks within the cable's core, Park officials admitted to inspectors that they opted to save money and reduce ride downtime by simply running the cables until the 6-month mark and then replacing them entirely. Yet, as the busy summer season of 2009 peaked, the park intentionally pushed the cable past its 180-day replacement window, attempting to keep the high-capacity ride open for the crowds rather than shutting it down for maintenance. As a direct result of this delay, the cable entered its 201st day of service, covered in gross amounts of fatigue breaks, invisible to the naked eye but easily detectable by standard testing, transforming the ride into a mechanical time bomb. 1. Kyle Wheeler's final legacy. The immediate fallout of the Cal/OSHA investigation resulted in significant financial and regulatory penalties for Knott's Berry Farm. The park was hit with severe citations for labor and safety code violations, and Xcelerator remained completely shut down for months as engineers redesigned the protective shielding around the launch track slot. For the Wheeler family, the road to recovery was long and difficult. 12-year-old Kyle Wheeler survived the horrific ordeal but faced a grueling medical journey. He underwent multiple complex surgeries, extensive skin grafts, and months of painful physical therapy to repair the damaged muscle tissue in his left leg, leaving his family with immediate medical bills exceeding $60,000. In 2011, the family's attorney, Art Morgan, finalized an out-of-court confidential settlement with Knott's Berry Farm, covering the lifelong costs of Kyle's medical care and the profound emotional distress caused by the incident. Beyond the courtroom, the fate of Kyle Wheeler left a permanent mark on the global amusement park industry. The disaster served as a definitive turning point for the engineering of high-thrill attractions. Theme parks around the world realized that the immense, unpredictable forces of hydraulic cable launches carried an inherent risk that was increasingly difficult to justify. The incident forced a massive industry-wide shift away from hydraulic winches toward linear synchronous motors, or LSMs. These systems utilize alternating electromagnetic fields to propel coaster trains without any physical cables, winches, or moving catch cars. Newer rides were designed with 0 contact points, completely eliminating the possibility of a catastrophic material snap. Today, Xcelerator still stands at Knott's Berry Farm, having been retrofitted with advanced magnetic testing protocols, strict daily inspection mandates, and heavy steel blast shielding designed to fully enclose the cable track and protect passengers from any future mechanical failures. But the ride's legacy is forever altered. It stands as a stark, cautionary monument in the amusement community, an enduring reminder of what happens when the commercial pressures of theme park operations compromise the strict, unyielding demands of engineering safety. For Kyle Wheeler, his final ride was a terrifying demonstration of mechanical failure, but his legacy is a safer industry, ensuring that millions of guests who board high-speed coasters every year are protected by the hard-won lessons of the past. The story of the Xcelerator disaster and the harrowing experience of Kyle Wheeler serves as a sobering reminder of the invisible thin line that separates a routine day of family fun from a life-altering tragedy. Amusement parks are designed to create the illusion of extreme danger while maintaining absolute, uncompromising safety. Guests hand over their trust and the trust of their children to the engineers who design these machines and the operators who maintain them. But as the investigation into the events of September 16, 2009 proved, the laws of physics do not care about park schedules, summer crowds, or profit margins. High-tensile steel, massive hydraulic pressure, and explosive kinetic energy require constant vigilance. When communication breaks down, when maintenance is delayed to minimize downtime, and when critical warnings are ignored, the illusion of danger rapidly transforms into a brutal reality. The structural changes enacted across the global amusement industry in the wake of this accident have undoubtedly saved lives, steering modern ride design towards safer, more reliable technologies. Yet, the human cost of these engineering lessons remains high. The memory of what occurred on that hot rod coaster train at Knott's Berry Farm continues to be studied by safety inspectors worldwide, ensuring that the industry never forgets the vital importance of risk assessment, structural maintenance, and the human lives hanging in the balance.